Report Pilipinas. Balitang hindi kontrolado, talakayang tunay at totoo. Ang inyong kasama sa umaga, nagpapaliwanag ng mga issue. Morning Report Pilipinas. Kasama ang veteranong tagabalita sa radyo, si Ira Panganiban. Alas 7:30 hanggang alas 9 ng umaga, Lunes hanggang Biyernes, dito lang sa DZRJ, 8:10 a.m. Ang Radyo Bandido TV. Good morning, Pilipinas! Lunes. Ito ang Morning Report Pilipinas. Isa't kalahating oras ng balitaan at balitaktakan na sinisimula na may init na balita at mga kaganapan itong nakaraang 24 oras. Ngayon po ay araw ng Lunes, October 2, 2023. Oktubre na po, huling bahagi ng taon. Ako po si Ira Panganiban at narito ulo na may init na balita natin ngayong umaga. Isa na namang OFW sa Saudi patay sa saksak. Kultong sa Socorro, Surigao, gumagamit ng protected land. Economic sanctions laban sa China, pinalutang ni Congressman Lagman. Rice importers sa Bulacan, kinasuhan ng customs sa sports ginto na dali ni 𝗥𝗲𝗽𝗶𝗴 sa Asian Games. Sa ibayong dagat, 56 patay sa suicide bombing sa Pakistan. A police report, 6 anyos na shoot sa kanal, patay. At sa showbiz, tililing, sweldo ng mga tauhan ng It's Showtime, problema ng producers nito at dapat ibigay. Yan ang ulo ng mga balita natin ngayong umaga. Narito na po ang detalye ng mga balitang yan. Tulad na nakagawian natin, simulan natin ang ating balitaan sa pamamagitan ng ulat panahon. Ang sentro ng bagyong si Jenny o international name Koinu ay 770 kilometro timog ng Hilagang Luzon na may maximum sustained winds na aabot sa 100 kilometers per hour malapit sa gitna. At gustiness na aabot sa 125 kilometers per hour. Si Jenny ay gumagalaw pa hilagang kanluran sa bilis na 15 kilometers per hour. Ang southwest monsoon o habagat ay patuloy na makakaapekto sa Timog Luzon, Visayas at Mindanao. Ang buong Visayas, Palawan kasama ang Kalayaan Islands at Occidental Mindoro ay magkakaroon ng maulap na papawirin na may kalat-kalat na pag-ulan at pagkitlat pagkulog dahil sa southwest monsoon. Mahina hanggang sa katamtamang hangin mula sa Timog Kanluran hanggang Kanluran ang iiral sa buong Visayas, Palawan kasama ang Kalayaan Islands at Occidental Mindoro na may banayad na hanggang sa katamtamang pag-alon ng karagatan. Ang araw, sumikat kaninang alas 5:46 ng umaga, lulubog mamayang alas 5:45 ng hapon. Bago tayo magbalitaan, kunin muna natin ang mga nagmamadaling ulat mula sa ating mga kasama sa labas. Mindanao, pag-asa para sa pag-angat ng ekonomiya ng Pilipinas ayon kay Villar. Report mula kay Jojo Sikat. Jojo, magandang umaga.
Naniniwala si Senadora 𝗥𝗲𝗶𝗶𝗴 na malaki ang pag-asa na umangat ang ekonomiya ng Pilipinas sa Mindanao dahil 1/3 ng rehiyon ang nasa agrikultura at 40% ng pagkain kailangan ng bansa ay nagmumula sa Davao Region. Kasabay nito, hinikayat ni Villar na gamitin ang potensyal na ito para suportahan ang overall economic development ng rehiyon. Binanggit ni Villar na meron tayong 3.5 million coconut farmers sa buong kapuluan. Dahil dito, inisponsoran niya maraming batas sa Senado para sa ikaunlad ng ating agrikultura. Para sa Mindanao, ipinasa ni Villar ang Republic Act No. 11.547 na nagdedeklara sa Davao City na chocolate capital at Davao Region na cacao capital ng Pilipinas. Ito ay pagkilala sa pinakamalaking cacao producer sa bansa at ang mahalagang papel nito para makilala ang Pilipinas na isa sa pinakamagaling na chocolate maker sa buong mundo. Ipinasa rin niya ang Agriculture, Fisheries and Rural Development Financing Enhancement Act of 2022 na nagpapawalang bisa sa agralo para sa lending program ng agrarian reform beneficiaries at iba pang magsasaka. Sa ilalim ng bagong batas, magkakaroon ng Agriculture, Fisheries at Rural Development Financing System na kinapapalooban ng mga utang at investment upang bumuti ang productivity at kita ng mga magsasaka, mangingisda at iba pang beneficiaries para suportahan ang pamahalaan na makumpleto ang kanilang agrarian reform initiative at mapabuti ang land tenure system. Sinabi ni Villar na ipinasa niya ang New Agrarian Emancipating Act na nagpapawalang bisa sa 57.65 billion piso na di bayad na amortization. May 610,054 na magsasaka ang nabiyayaan ng naturang batas. Ako, si Jojo Sikat, nag-uulat para sa DCRJ3M, ang Radyo Bandido TV.
Unity Walk, Interfaith Rally at Peace Covenant Signing para sa mapayapang halalan, matagumpay na isinagawa sa Infanta, Quezon naman. Ang report na yan ay manggagaling kay JR Narit. JR, magandang umaga.
Nagbigay payo si 𝗣𝗶𝗹𝗶𝗴 sa mga sumabak ngayong halalan ng barangay at sangguniang kabataan na sinabi nito na ang eleksyon ay isang araw lamang. Ang pagiging magkabarangay, magkapitbahay at magkabag-anak at magkaibigan ay panghabang buhay. Kaya huwag maging dahilan ang halalan sa pagkakawatak-watak at pagkakaroon ng hindi pagkakaunawaan na maaring panghabang buhay kimkimin. Ito ang naging paalala ng Vice Alcalde sa isinagawang Unity Walk, Interfaith Rally at Peace Covenant para sa nalalapit na barangay at sangguniang kabataan eleksyon sa nasabing bayan. Ayon pa kay Ruanto na anuman ang maging resulta ng halalan, tanggapin at igalang dahil kung ang tunay na hangad ay maglingkod sa barangay, manalo man o matalo ay susuporta pa rin sa mga programa ng barangay at makikisangkot may pakialam, may posisyon man o wala. Ang aktibidad ay nilaukan ng Infanta Municipal Police Station, Comilica Infanta, DILG Infanta, AFP, BFP, Philippine Coast Guard, religious sectors, mga kandidatong punong barangay, kagawad, iski chairperson at kagawad mula sa 36 na barangay sa nasabing bayan. Mula sa lalawigan ng Quezon, ako si JR Narit, nag-uulat sa DCRJ18AM ang Radyo Bandido TV.
Maraming salamat, JR Narit. Ngayon sa ating tampok ng mga balita, natagpuang patay ang isang 32 anyos na overseas Filipino worker o OFW sa Saudi Arabia. Nakakilala ang biktima na isang domestic worker na si Marjoret Garcia. Hindi pa rin sigurado ang pamilya ni Garcia sa nangyari kay Marjoret. Hindi pa rin nila alam ang dahilan ng pagkamatay, pero ayon sa impormasyong nakuha ng pamilya ay sinaksak ang biktima. Huling nakausap ni Marjoret ang kanyang pamilya noong September 15, 2023. Humihingi ngayon ng tulong sa gobyerno ang kanyang asawang si Tito Garcia sa kanilang paghingi ng hustisya para sa 32 anyos na OFW. Aasikasuhin naman ng OWA ang mga gastusin sa paglalakbay ng pamilya sa Metro Manila para iuwi ang bangkay ni Marjoret pagdating dito sa Pilipinas. Sa police reports natin, patay ang 6 taong gulang na babae matapos na madulas sa baha at lumusot sa kanal sa La Trinidad, Benguet. sa pababang bahagi ng kalsada sa barangay Lubas. Sa kuha ng CCTV, pauwi na sana ang kanilang bahay ang biktima kasama ang kapatid. Habang umuulan, ilang saglit pa makikitang nadulas ang bata sa gilid ng kalsada bago tuluyang nahulog sa kanal. Naisugod pa sa ospital ang bata, ngunit idineklara itong dead on arrival. Patay naman ang isang off-duty na sundalo at kritikal ang kasamahan nito matapos pagbabarilin sa National Highway sa Sultan Kudarat sa Maguindanao del Norte. Kinilala ni Lieutenant Colonel 𝗥𝗲𝗽𝗶𝗶, hepe ng pulisya ng Sultan Kudarat, ang napatay na sundalo na si Staff Sergeant Darwin Alaba ng 1st Brigade Combat Team ng Philippine Army na nakabase sa barangay Pigkalagan. Ang kanyang kasama si Private First Class 𝗥𝗲𝗽𝗶𝗴 ay nasugatan at ngayon ay sumasailalim sa pagpapagamot sa isang ospital sa Cotabato City. Kapwa nakasuot ng sibilyan ang dalawa ng salakayin sakay umano ng Baja motorcycle patungong Cotabato City ang mga biktima. Kapwa nakatalaga sa first BCT ng pagbabarilin ng mga armadong sakay ng motor mula sa likuran habang binabagtas nila ang National Highway sa sitio Sandakan, barangay 𝗥𝗲𝗽𝗶𝗴, pasado 1:00 ng hapon. Nagkasa naman ang checkpoint ang Philippine National Police sa sitio Kapihan sa Socorro, Surigao del Norte. Target ng PNP na tulungan ang mga miyembro ng Socorro Bayanihan Services Incorporated, isang kulto na malayang makagalaw sa loob at labas ng lugar. Ikinatuwa naman ng ilang residente ang hakbang ng pulisya. Lahat ng 4,000 miyembro ng SPSI ay kasalukuyang naninirahan sa 353 hectare sitio Kapihan, isang protektadong lugar ng DENR na matatagpuan sa bulubunduking bahagi ng bayan ng Socorro. Sinuspindi naman ng Department of Environment and Natural Resources ang Protected Area Community-Based Resource Management Agreement ng People's Organization na Socorro Bayanihan Services Incorporated. Naglabas si DENR Secretary Maria Antonia Yulo Loizaga ng letter of suspension sa SPSI habang naghihintay ng karagdagang investigasyon sa matinding paglabag nito sa terms and condition ng Protected Area Management Base Agreement. Nauna nang nadiskubre sa Senado na DENR Protected Area pala ang kinatatayo ang lugar ng Socorro Bayanihan Services Incorporated. Una nang inireklamo ang SPSI ng pamamaltrato sa mga miyembro nito. Pinalutang ng isang mambabatas ang pagpapataw ng economic sanctions o parusang pang-ekonomiya sa China kasunod ng mga panggigipit nito sa West Philippine Sea. Inayunan din ng mambabatas sa hakbang ng Kongreso na realign ng mga confidential at intelligence funds sa mga ahensyang nakatutok sa pangangalaga ng depensa at seguridad ng bansa. Sinabi ni Albay Congressman 𝗥𝗲𝗽𝗶𝗏 na mahirap i-audit kung paano gagamitin ng mga ahensya ang confidential at intelligence fund. Kaya naman isa sa mungkahi niya ang makisali sa calibrated na economic sanctions sa ibang mga bansa laban sa China. Binanggit ng mambabatas na ang mga pag-uusap sa diplomasya ay hindi uunlad laban sa Beijing, lalo na sa kanilang matagal na presensya sa West Philippine Sea. Sa loob lamang ng 4 na taon, may mahigit na 500 hektarya ng coral reefs ang napinsala dahil sa mga aktibidad ng China sa West Philippine Sea. Sinabi ni 𝗣𝗶𝗶𝗶𝗏 ng UP Institute for Maritime Affairs and Law of the Sea na nakita sa satellite imagery na mahigit 500 hektarya ng Scarborough Shoal ang napinsala mula 2012 hanggang 2016. Anya, ang malawakang coral destruction sa West Philippine Sea ay matagal nang ginagawa at nagaganap. Sinabi rin ni Albay First District Representative Edsel Lagman na ang Pilipinas ay maaaring mabuhay ng walang confidential funds at maaaring gumana ng may limitadong intelligence fund. Sinabi ni Lagman na mahalaga para sa mga pampubliko opisyal na maging matipid sa paglalaan ng mga pondong ito kahit na sila ay may karapatan dito. Binanggit ng mambabatas na hindi makatwiran ng Department of Information and Communications Technology at Office of Solicitor General na bigyan ng confidential at intelligence fund. Inilunsad naman ng lokal na pamahalaan ng Pasay ang proyektong 𝗣𝗶𝗶𝗶𝗃 na magpapatibay sa pangakong pagbibigay ng proteksyon sa kalikasan. Pinangunahan ni Pasay City Mayor 𝗥𝗲𝗽𝗶𝗶 at City Environment at Natural Resources Office Head 𝗥𝗲𝗽𝗶𝗃 ang paglulunsad ng naturang proyekto na ginanap sa covered court ng Barangay 149, Pildera 2, Naiya Road, Pasay City. Sinabi ni 𝗥𝗲𝗽𝗶𝗃 na sinimulan ng proyektong incentivized segregation na mayroong simbolikong pagpapalit ng basura sa kalakal tulad ng bigas o ang basura palit bigas, delata, noodles at iba pang commodities. Ang layunin ng paglulunsad ng nabanggit na proyekto ay upang mahimok ang mga residente na lumahok sa aktibong programa tungkol sa waste management. Ibinahagi naman ng pamunuan ng Bureau of Customs na nagsampa na sila ng 4 na agricultural smuggling na kaso laban sa mga rice importers na konektado sa isang warehouse sa Bulacan na dati ng sinalakay ng mga operatiba. Ayon kay Attorney William Balayo, Acting Director ng Customs Legal Service, nagsamba ng kaso nung Biyernes ang Bureau Action Team Against Smuggling laban sa mga smuggler. Talagang yun ang pangalan no? Paliwanag ni Balayo, bagamat ang 3 kaso ay tinuturing na large scale, isa sa kaso ay hindi nakaabot sa 10 million peso threshold kaya ibinaba sa paglabag sa Customs Modernization and Tariff Act. Tinayak ni Balayo na ang Customs sa pamumuno ni Commissioner Bienvenido Rubio ay nagsisikap na magsugpo ang lahat ng uri ng smuggling. Nangako naman si Justice Secretary 𝗥𝗲𝗽𝗶𝗃 na personal nitong tututukan ng reklamo ng 68 biktima ng recruitment scam sa Italy. Sinabi ni Remulla na hinihintay na lamang nilang nailabas ang endorsement mula sa Department of Migrant Workers. Tiniyak ng kalihim na mapapanagot na sa batas ang inaakusahan na recruiter na sina Crizel Respicio at Frederick Dutaro na tumangay umano sa aabot sa 119 million peso mula sa mga biktima. Sinabi naman ni Defense Secretary Gilbert Chodoro na layo niya na baguhin ang kasalukuyang disenyo ng Reserve Forces paradigm ng Armed Forces of the Philippines. Sa naging paliwanag ng kalihim, hindi na balido ang kasalukuyang disenyo lalo na sa mga banta sa bansa. Ni Chodoro, maaaring maharap ang Pilipinas sa unknown incoming threat na maaaring ipanawagan sa mga mamamayan na magtulungan para ipagtanggol ang bansa lalo na pagdating sa aerial at maritime defenses. Welcome naman kay AFP Chief of Staff General Romeo Browner ang revision plans ni Gibo Chodoro. Mamumuhunan ang Japanese government ng Pilipinas ng 1.5 trillion peso ang halaga ng infrastructure project sa pamamagitan ng Official Development Assistance. Nakatuon ito na pondohan ng Transport Infrastructure Program. Sinabi ni Transportation Secretary 𝗥𝗲𝗽𝗶𝗃 na kabilang sa Transport Development Programs ay ang North-South Commuter Railway Project, Metro Manila Subway Project, LRT-1 Cavite Extension, LRT-2 East Extension at MRT-3 Rehabilitation. Personal naman na nagpasalamat si Bautista sa Japanese government sa mga kinatawan mula Japan International Cooperating Agency o JICA na malaking tulong para sa Pilipinas na makamit na mapaunlad ang transport sector. Inaasahang bababa ang presyo ng gasolina bukas pero tataas naman ng konti ang presyo ng diesel. Sinabi ng Unioil na inaasahan nilang bumaba ang halaga ng gasolina ng mula 1 pesos and 80 centavos hanggang 2 pesos kada litro. Bahagya naman umanong tataas ang presyo ng diesel mula 20 hanggang 40 sentimos. Isa namang industry source na nagsabi na po pwede pang maging hanggang 2.50 ang pagbaba ng presyo ng gasolina habang ang diesel naman ay tataas na hanggang 50 sentimos. Sisirit naman ang presyo ng LPG ngayong Oktubre. Sinabi ni Petron na magpapatupad ito ng 3.75 o 3 pesos and 75 centavos kada litrong pagtaas sa presyo ng kanilang household LPG. Simula kahapon umaga, Oktubre 1, ang pagsasaayos ay maaaring isalin sa 41 pesos and 25 centavos sa pagtaas ng presyo ng isang tipikal na 11 kilogram na tangke ng LPG. Ang kumpanya ay magtataas din ng presyo ng auto LPG ng 2.9 o 2 pesos and 9 centavos kada litro sa parehong panahon. Nagluluksa ngayon si dating Pangulong Rodrigo Roa Duterte at pamilya Duterte sa pagpanaw ng kapatid nilang si 𝗥𝗲𝗽𝗶𝗴. Ang kapatid ng dating Pangulo ay namatay araw ng Biyernes, September 29. Personal na nagtungo sa bahay ng mga Villarica sa Cavite ang dating presidente kasama si Senator 𝗥𝗲𝗽𝗶𝗴. Nakasama naman ng dating Pangulo ang kanyang mga pamangkin at nagkaroon ng pribadong oras sa pagluluksa. Nabatid na kasama ni Ginang Villarica ang kanyang pamilya nang ito ay bawian ng buhay. What happened? Wala. Wala. Sorry po. Anyway. Sa ibayong dagat, binulabog ng suicide bombing sa dalawang religious ceremony sa Pakistan na kumitil sa hindi bababa sa 66 na individual at nag-iwang sugatan sa iba pa sa pagdiriwang ng mga sumasamba ng kaarawan ni Prophet Muhammad. Ayon sa pulisya at mga lokal na opisyal, nasa 52 individual at 50 pa ang sugatan sa pagsabog sa isang religious procession sa Mastung District ng Southwest Balochistan Province ayon kay Assistant Commissioner Ata Ul Munim. Makalipas ang ilang oras, panibagong pagsabog na itala sa Friday prayers sa isang mosque malapit sa Peshawar City sa northwestern 𝗣𝗶𝗹𝗶𝗀 Province na kumitil sa 4 individual at nag-iwan sa 11 na sugatan. Dahil sa pagsabog, gumuho ang bubong ng mosque, subalit hindi pa matukoy kung ilang individual ang naiwan sa loob. Wala pang grupo ang umaako ng responsibilidad sa dalawang pagsabog na nakadap sa restive period sa Pakistan sa gitna ng militant attacks bago ang general election sa Enero. Sa sports, nagpaabot ng pagbati si Pangulong Ferdinand Marcos Jr. kay Paul Volter, EJ Obiena matapos na masungkit nito ang unang gintong medalya para sa Pilipinas sa 19th Asian Games sa China. Ang nasabing gintong medalya ay nakuha ni Obiena matapos lundagin ang 5.90 meters sa men's pole vault event sa Hangzhou Olympic Center Stadium sa China noong Sabado. Tinalo ni Obiena ang Chinese na sina Huang Hojiao na nakuha naman ang silver medal makaraang lagpasan ng 5.65 meters. Nauna nang sinubukan lundagin ni Obiena ang 6.02 meters upang masira sana nito ang kanyang Asian record. Gayunman nabigo ito sa 3 beses na pagtataka. Sa kabuuan, 8 na ang medalya ng Pilipinas, kabilang ang isang silver at 6 na bronze. Eto na! Maaga natin tatapusin ang balitaan. May mahalagang interview tayo mamaya tungkol sa nuclear energy. Kaya eto na! Sa ating showbiz tililing, separate and distinct matters. Separate and distinct matters. Ito ang nilinaw ng Movie and Television and Classification Board ukol sa pagsuspende sa noontime show na It's Showtime sa mga issue sa no work, no pay na maaari kaharapin ng mga manggagawa nito bilang resulta ng utos. Ayon sa MTRCB sa isang pahayag, ang suspensyon ay nagpapakita na mas malawak at mas matinding bagay o usapin ng kontraktualisasyon sa loob ng entertainment industry. Kinakailangan nito ng mas matinding atensyon mula sa mga producer. Ayon kay Senator Bong Revilla naman, mukhang nagkaroon ng mga lesson At kung karoon man ng pagkakamali sa kasalanan ni Juan ay hindi na kasalanan ni Pedro. Kaya sana wag nating parusahan ng mga nagsusumikap araw-araw para lang mabuhay. Ito yung mga trabahador ng It's Showtime. Tinawagan pansin ng senador ang nasabing issue at ipinunto na ang kapanahanan ng mga empleyado ng show ay dapat sa alang-alang, lalo na't wala silang kinalaman sa insidente na naging dahilan ng pagsuspindi. Sinabi ng MTRCB na responsibilidad ng producer o management ng isang palabas na tiyakin ang regularisasyon ng kanilang mga empleyado. Teka, bago tayo bumitaw sa ating balitaan, bago lang lahat ng yan, narito isa pang nagmamadaling balita. PNP naglabas ng revised guidelines sa detalye ng police report. Ayon kay Colonel Fajardo, ulat mula kay Edwin Moreno. Edwin, magandang umaga.
Kinumpirma ng PNP na naglabas na sila ng revised guidelines sa lahat ng regional, provincial, local police at public information office kaugnay sa mga police report. Ito'y matapos malmang mga mamamayag sa Negros Occidental PNP Provincial Office na inalis ang ilang detalye sa police report gaya ng pangalan ng biktima at suspect. Paglilinaw ni PNP PO Chief Colonel Fajardo, saklaw kasi niya ito ng Data Privacy Act kung saan dapat manatiling protektado ang pagkakilanlan ng mga kasangkot sa isang kaso kung hindi pa ito naihahain sa piskalya o sa hukuman. Ngunit inalmahan ito ng National Union of Journalists of the Philippines o NUJP na nagsabi na ang niripasong panuntunan ng PNP isang uri ng pagsikil sa karapatan ng publiko sa tamang impormasyon. Pero depensa ni Fajardo.
That is sir, precisely the reason kung bakit naglabas nga po ng reminders ang National Headquarters to remind po yung ating mga line units on the proper procedure in releasing information, particularly sa ating mga members po ng media, not to curtail your rights, not to prohibit you from accessing information. Baka magkaroon lang po ng uniform interpretation pagdating po sa paglalabas po ng information. But once na isang pa na po yung kaso, sir, ay public record na po yan, yung ating mga kasamahan sa media could always get po yung mga names po na yan doon sa mga concerned na offices para ibigay po sa kanila. Yung release po ng mga names na both the victims and the suspect, we have to also abide doon sa provisions po ng Data Privacy Act dahil malinaw po doon na hindi tayo basta-basta pwedeng maglabas ng pangalan without the express permission and consent po ng mga concerned individual.
Ulat sa Kampo Krami, ako si Edwin Moreno ulat sa DCRJ Tanemang Radyo, Bandido TV.
Maraming salamat, Edwin Moreno. At yan ang mga balitang nakalap ng News and Information Center ng DZRJ Radyo Bandido TV News Team. Sa ngalan ng ang co-pilot na sa engineering at technical side na si Ariel Castro, ang mga reporter ng Radyo Bandido. At ako po si Ira Panganiban. Magbabalik ang Morning Report Pilipinas pagkatapos ng ilang mahalagang paalala. Ang oras natin, alas 8:01 ng umaga.
You are watching the multi-awarded Radio Bandido TV on Channel 224 Sky Cable and TV Plus boxes. Simulcast on DZRJ 8:10 a.m. Informing, advising, and entertaining the Filipinos and OFWs around the world. Streaming live on www.facebook.com/DZRJ 8:10 a.m. or on YouTube, channel DZRJ 8:10 a.m. Radio Bandido.
If you like listening to our stations, DZRJ 810 AM and RJFM 100.3, there's no excuse not to listen anywhere and wherever you want. Listen on your phone or computer anytime, anywhere in the world. Just download the app for free. How do you download? If you have an Android phone or tablet, go to Google Play Store. If you have an iPhone or iPad, go to Apple App Store. It's that simple. We have 3 streaming sites. Just type in TuneIn Radio or Radio Garden or Streema. That's STREEMA. Once the app is downloaded, type in and search for DZRJ. And now you can choose and enjoy DZRJ 810 AM and RJFM 100.3 anytime and anywhere. Hey, it's free.
Nagbabalik po ang Morning Report Pilipinas sa inyong paboritong istasyon ng radyo sa AM band ng DZRJ 810 AM Radyo Bandido. Huwag po ninyo kakalimutan ang ating mga social media channels, ang Facebook, ang YouTube, ang TikTok. Type lang po ang keywords DZRJ 810 AM Radyo Bandido. Pag nakita nyo na kami, please like, follow, share, subscribe. Click nyo po yung bell button para ma-remind kayo na meron na pong bagong video ng DZRJ 810 AM Radyo Bandido. At meron na pong bagong episode ng Morning Report Pilipinas. Medyo importante pag-uusapan natin ngayong umaga, kaya binigyan natin ng medyo mahaba-habang panahon. Dahil lahat tayo epektado. Alam nyo naman, presyo ng gasolina, Diyos ko, baka by the first quarter, ang prediction ng mga kaibigan ko internationally, by next year, second quarter, umabot tayo sa 100 piso bawat isang litro ng crudo at saka ng gasolina. Yan ay kung hindi hihinto ang gulo sa Ukraine at patuloy na itatao, pipigilan ng Middle East ang pag-produce ng langis o pagbebenta nila ng supply ng langis. Ibig sabihin, talagang sakit na sa ulo ang issue ng power. Diba? Elektrisidad, gasolina, kuryente, yung mga bagay-bagay na nagpapatakbo sa buhay natin. Diba? Ngayon, may isang solusyon na matindi na ang tagal na 1970s pa. Sinimulan na nga ng dating Pangulong Ferdinand Marcos Sr. yung hakbang na yan di ba? Hindi ko maintindihan kung bakit ayaw nilang patulan. Ang daming natatakot, ang daming pananakot, ang daming dilibak na ginagawa. Pero sa totoo lang, sa buong mundo, ang tinatawag nating nuclear energy ay isa na sa pinakamatinding pinanggagalingan ng source ng power generation. Kasama natin ngayon sa ating palatuntunan ay ilan sa mga eksperto diyan. Siyempre andyan kasama natin si Congressman Mark Cojuangco, diba? Isa sa mga nagtataguyod, nagtutulak itong nuclear power development sa bansa. Kasi sa totoo lang ako, naniniwala ako dyan. Sa 2 milyong nuclear power chata, hindi naman 2 milyon. Pero sa sobrang dami ng nuclear power plant sa buong mundo, dadalawa pa lang alam ko nagka-problema. At controlled pa. So yung fears na sinasabi nila tungkol dyan sa nuclear power, medyo unfounded. But nevertheless, may mga eksperto tayo dito para magkukwento sa atin. Isa na si Congressman Mark Cojuangco. Good morning, Congressman Mark. Si Ira Panganiban.
Good morning. Good morning, Ira.
Good morning.
Magandang umaga sa iyo.
Isa pa sa mga guests natin ay si Angelica
Ong.
Angelica Ong. Yan. Medyo I'm sorry, Angelica. Nakakaintindi ka Tagalog? Do you understand Tagalog or?
Sorry, I don't understand Tagalog. I'm
all right.
sorry, be here.
So switch tayo. Let's move our discussions towards English so our expert can understand us. Anyway, let's start with Congressman Mark Cojuangco. Congressman Mark, tinutulap, pinepresenta nyo na itong nuclear energy. In fact, napakarami ng tao napakaraming Pilipino nagsasabing, sige na, gamitin na natin yung nuclear energy. What is the status of those proposals to, number one, rebuild the Bataan nuclear power plant, number two, to put up other nuclear power plants in the country?
Doon po sa Bataan nuclear power plant, hindi ko po tinutulak yan, ipinapaubaya ko yan sa desisyon ng Kongreso or ng Presidente or ng taga-Morong mismo, dapat kasi ang alam ko, ang marami sa Morong gustong paandarin yan dahil kulang sila ng trabaho doon at ito po ay magbibigay ng magandang hanap buhay. So, nag-file po tayo mula nung ako'y nahalal. Since the time I was elected as chairman of the House Committee on Nuclear Energy, 13 congressman po ang nag-file ng bill separately to create the regulatory authority. Nakita namin na hindi kami eksperto na magsulat ng batas na ganyan.
Yes, po.
Kaya nag-hire po, humingi kami ng tulong kay Speaker, binigay naman niya. Nag-hire po kami ng isang international nuclear law expert sa Australia.
Yes, po.
At si Attorney Helen Cook, siya po ang nag-draft ng bill na gustuhan po ng lahat. Kaya mabilis lang dumaan po sa committee, naipasa. And then dumating po ang talakayan sa plenaryo. Naisip namin na dapat magkaroon po ng amendment dahil gusto namin maging fiscally independent. Ibig sabihin may sariling source ng pondo na hindi na kailangan masubject sa politika at saka sa yearly budgetary process for at least 10 years hanggang sa panahon na meron ng tumatakbong nuclear plant para may sarili siyang kita at hindi siya kailangang umasa kahit kanino. So, yun po medyo nagtagal, medyo may konting kontrobersiya pero pumasa rin po sa committee, pumasa na po sa Ways and Means, pumasa na po sa appropriation at babalik po sa plenaryo between the November 8 and 15 pagbalik po namin sa Kongreso. Wala po akong nakikitang dahilan kung hindi ito papasa. Kasi 210 na po ang aming co-author. So 2/3 na po ng House ang sumusuporta sa bill na ito. So once na ipasa po ito sa Senado at naging batas po ito kung pipirmahan ng ating Presidente, wala na pong hadlang ang kahit anong nuclear plant kahit saan sa Pilipinas basta basbasan po nitong PhilAttom yung magiging regulatory authority po natin.
Yun. Kasi palaging pinag-uusapan pagdating dyan sa or what the number of biggest criticism about nuclear power plant. And that's what everybody talks about, criticisms against it. Pero may magandang may magandang idudulot din ang pagtatayo ng nuclear power plant sa Congressman Mark, 'di ba? Ano sa nakikita nating magandang benepisyo nito aside from cheaper electricity?
Well, that's the number one, cheaper electricity because kung hindi magiging cheap ang electricity, I don't think the Philippines has a responsibility to cut emissions for global warming and climate change because ang liit po how small our consumption per capita. We are not the cause of this. This is the developed countries that cause this problem. So number one po is aside from being cheap, intrinsically cheap, ang laki po ng savings sa ating a huge savings in our reduction of import for fossil fuel. Kasi po, right now, we are 55% coal, we are 20% gas, and Malampaya is almost ubus na. And kaya the DOE is giving permits for the construction of many LNG receiving terminals. So, gas will be imported. That is 20%. So that's 75% fossil fuel importation. For every 1,000 megawatts po, we have 16,000 of fossil fuel right now. We import about $700 million to $1 billion every year for every 1,000. So that's around 12 to 14,000, $14 billion a year na importation.
Oh my God.
Kung po sa, if it's nuclear, 1,000 megawatts, $20 million a year lang po. So ang laki po ng diferensya. So the value of our peso and our dollar will not be affected so much by energy generation. So imagine kung malakas po ang peso versus the dollar, lahat po ng bagay na apektuhan. Mas mura po ang importasyon natin. That's number one. Number two is wala pong emission, carbon dioxide. Ang nuclear, walang particulate emission. So ayon sa datos from the data all over the world, nuclear is the least deadly power source. The most deadly is coal. So by implication, because we chose coal instead of nuclear, we have shortened the lives of thousands of Filipinos, especially Bataeños, because 3,500 megawatts po ang coal sa Batane. So we have shortened the lives of thousands of Bataeños between 1986 and now. We could have lengthened those lives, given them better quality of life, less sickness, if we had gone nuclear in 1986 instead of coal. So environment there. And then hindi siya, it is not intermittent. It is not fluctuating. It is reliable. So it doesn't need much backup. We don't need to build so many gas plants to back it up. 92% plus ang capacity factor versus 15% for solar and 40% for wind. Ano? Ang laki ng diferensya. And then kung minsan po, tahimik ang panahon for weeks at a time. So lahat ng investment mo, magiging investment mo sa wind, at let's say makulimlim during monsoon season, mababa ang output or zero. So you have to run your gas plant. You have to build gas plants. So doble na po ang puhunan mo. And then when it's very sunny and windy, you have to tenga these gas plants. So may gastos po yan. Who is going to pay for that? Di ba? Ipapataw po yan sa atin na wala tayong kamuwang-muwang na doble-doble na po ang gastos ng ating kuryente. So, yun po, jobs. It provides so many high-paying jobs. And it's an anchor to local economic activity. So, lalo-lalo na yung host communities, ang laki po ng benepisyo sa nuclear power plant.
Okay. Secretary Mark, tanungin ko lang si Angelica, no? Angelica, you are the founding editor of Taiwan Offshore Wind Unredacted. It's a magazine.
Correct.
It's a magazine or it's a newspaper?
Trade publication. So I am an energy reporter. My work appears on many platforms.
I see.
But my own publication is for those in the offshore wind industry in Taiwan, where it is a big business.
I see. And considering that you're into alternative energy, aside from those coming from fossil fuel, coal,
well, for
oil.
me, actually, I think there are different levels to energy. Of course, once you have a stable and reliable energy system, the challenge is to decarbonize. We are in a worldwide crisis. Congressman 𝗏𝗏𝗽𝗏, I think, mentioned that, well, on a per capita basis, the Philippines release so little fossil fuels. You know what those in the developed countries say? They say there's so few of us, so what we emit doesn't matter compared to everybody in the developed country. So I believe that if you point fingers at each other, nobody's going to decrease their emission and we're all going to fry. But having said that, decarbonization must come second. First must be having a stable, reliable, and affordable way of generating power for everybody and to sustain economic growth. I do not believe in decarbonization before economic growth. So bringing the situation back to Taiwan, right now we've made a very foolish decision. We made a foolish decision because when President Tsai came into power in 2016, she decided to shut off all the nuclear power plants. And Taiwan had 6 when she took over. So she decided to go in big for wind and for solar. Mm-hmm. So what happens is we build a lot of solar power plants, we build a lot of wind plants at extreme expense. But every time we make some progress, we would shut a reactor. And because nuclear energy is low carbon power, then we will get a setback. We'd build more wind and solar and we get another setback. So President Tsai is actually projected to leave Taiwan, not only with a dirtier grid, with more fossil fuels on it, it's going to be a less stable grid because she's replaced stable nuclear energy with renewables.
I see. Okay, let me get this clear. You're saying that first we have to stabilize our power supply or our economy before we go to decarbonization program. Is that correct?
I would say it slightly differently. Mm-hmm. Until your power its supply is stable, mm-hmm. That's got to be your top concern. Is it possible to put in solar panels before you completely do that? Absolutely it is. But you have to think, okay, you can put in some solar panels now, no problem. We can walk and chew gum, as we say in my other country, America. But the problem is, is solar panel going to get you to energy security? And I would say that's very difficult because the storage technology isn't there. The day before yesterday, I was talking to at Congressman 𝗥𝗲𝗽𝗶𝗴's event, and I did a little experiment. I can do it today, actually, with all our audience who are listening. Okay, I'm going to say 1, 2, 3, and I want you to hold your breath. 1, 2, 3. And now, meanwhile, while you hold your breath, I'm going to keep talking about energy systems. And by now, maybe you're getting a little bit uncomfortable. But just imagine if I told you you can't take another breath until the sun starts shining again. Or sorry, you can't breathe right now because the wind is blowing. Okay, everybody can breathe now. I don't want to cause anybody discomfort. But the truth of the matter is electricity is the oxygen of the economic system. And we cannot even go a minute without it. We're talking about factories. We're talking about hospitals, even people's homes. We need electricity every moment of every day. That's why stability has to be the top concern.
I see. Okay, we have our other guest, Mr. Mark Nelson. He's now joining us on Zoom. He's the managing director of Radiant Energy Group. No.
By the way,
yes,
Mark. Yeah, Mark Nelson is a master's in nuclear engineering from Cambridge University.
I see. Oh,
yes.
Very good, very good. So he can explain a few more things to us about nuclear. Mark, I'd like to ask you, the biggest concern, well, in the Philippines, the naysayers, the biggest critics of nuclear energy are saying, are harping on the safety of creating nuclear power plants here. Can you enlighten us about the safety aspects of a nuclear power plant?
Sure. First, I'd like to note that in a lot of the world where there's an energy crisis, say in Europe, anti-nuclear people have stopped talking about safety. They don't think it's a winning issue, or they don't believe it themselves that nuclear is unsafe. They've moved on to other issues like, oh, nuclear takes too long, or it's too costly, or what do you do with the waste? So that it's very interesting that people in the rest of the world have stopped talking about nuclear safety almost entirely. The number one thing I'd say to you about nuclear safety is nuclear energy is so powerful that people assume that the accidents are very powerful. And so then the accidents that have happened, like Chernobyl, nuclear plant blowing up in Ukraine or 𝗥𝗲𝗽𝗶𝗴 nuclear plant having meltdowns in Japan, they take on mythological proportions completely outside any facts. So, for example,
Mark, yeah, I was going to say that in all of the nuclear power plants that have been built around the world, I have only heard of 2 instances where the power plants had problems. That's
okay,
Three.
and I should mention
3.
there.
Is it correct? 3, Mark, Congressman Mark? 3, you know?
Yes, three.
Oh, 3 out of the hundreds of nuclear power plants that have been built around the world. So I don't get the mythical proportions of the fear about nuclear power plants.
And in those 3 accidents, 2 of the 3 nuclear plants, Chernobyl and 3 Mile Island in Pennsylvania in the USA, kept operating as commercial nuclear plants.
Yes.
They kept going.
Yes.
So
Yes.
Chernobyl kept going and selling electricity after its accident. 3 Mile Island kept going and selling electricity, meaning the workers who knew the plant best, who had the most to lose if it were really dangerous, they kept going to their jobs, being proud of their plant, making electricity every day. In the case of Chernobyl, for 14 years, and they shut it down in 2000 so they can start up another nuclear plant, even though the workers at Chernobyl were upset about the closure because they're like, this is our plant. Why are you closing? In 3 Mile Island in Pennsylvania, the nuclear plant kept going until 2019 when it was shut down because of the low natural gas prices that were currently there. Now they wish they had it, but whatever.
I see. So going back to the safety is not an issue. It's now more of urban legends that's circulating.
Well, let me put it this way. Is safety an issue in airliners? Well, you put your best engineers designing the airliners. You put your best pilots on, at the cockpit of the Philippine Air flights that are welcome in airports around the world. Philippines Airlines can fly successfully with excellent Filipino pilots, high degree of safety, right? Same thing with nuclear. Nuclear attracts the very best people because it's the top energy source. It's the strongest energy source, the best energy source. So it attracts the best people with the best salaries, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. I see. It makes sense. And you're the expert in nuclear energy. Does nuclear energy, does the development of nuclear power bring with it other benefits aside from cheaper electricity?
Yes, it does. So one of the things that makes the grid more stable with nuclear is that the turbines, the part that spins and makes the power, it's very heavy and it's spinning, provides benefits to all the other power plants and all the other users of the grid. It's just that aspect of electricity grid. Another thing is because nuclear plants take very little fuel, almost all the money required to run a nuclear plant, it goes to local workers. It goes to local tax base. It goes to professionals working and living in the country with the nuclear plant. Only a little bit of the money is sent overseas. In other words, it's an energy source that is the opposite of the remittances problem where people go and work to build other economies far away from the Philippines and they send a bit of money home. In this case, the money is at home. The money stays at home. Uranium, it's a nice thing to mine, but the uranium mining sector is small because you only need a little bit of it. A tiny bit of uranium sent to the shores of the Philippines or a tiny bit of uranium gathered up from the ocean around the Philippines ends up making 20 to 50 times that amount of value in power. In natural gas, the natural gas cost is between 50% and 75% of the cost of running natural gas plant. If the natural gas comes from overseas, you're not developing your own resources by spending that money, even though it's good to have the electricity. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think I get it. It's so much cheaper to operate the nuclear power plant. Cost-wise alone, importing fuel and coal and liquid natural gas, it's like 100 times more expensive than buying that small amount of uranium or whatever nuclear or whatever radioactive material you use.
That's why countries with coal and natural gas are building nuclear plants so they can make their money sending away the coal and natural gas, not burning it themselves. That's a mugs game. You want to send away the coal to a country like Philippines as long as you don't have your own nuclear plants, so you can make money off of the Philippines as they power their grid. So the only way to play this is to have your own nuclear plants to not have to buy those countries' coal and natural gas.
I'm going back to Angelica. Angelica, it just popped into my mind. Germany, some European countries, if you mentioned even Taiwan, previously tried to shutter their nuclear power plants. They're going back they're going back to nuclear power.
Well, here's the thing. We have an election, so it's all in the balance. One presidential candidate wants to continue with the nuclear shutdown, which, according to the plans of the ruling DPP, will be complete in 2025. We are not ready for this. The other candidates would like to continue using nuclear power because the writing is on the wall. After enjoying very stable electricity systems, Taiwan, just in the time since 2020, has suffered 3 rolling island-wide blackouts in 3 years. It's totally unacceptable for us. As you know, we have the world's best maker of computer chips, TSMC, and those machines are so sensitive, even a fluctuation in voltage, not a complete outage, a fluctuation in voltage can cost billions of US dollars in damage. So we have a problem where because of the ruling party's energy illiteracy, we could see some major economic damage. By the way, Taiwan has become very, very reliant on gas. And let me tell you why it's a very bad idea. Yes, it's going to be expensive, but that's not even the whole problem. You're going to have a problem eventually with stability. You're competing for natural gas with Taiwan. You're competing for LNG with Europe, all those different countries. And so is the Philippines in a position to sign a 20-year exclusive contract for these fuels? If not, you might be in the position of a place like Pakistan, where every time Europe needs more fuel, Pakistan has to go without because they cannot compete. This does so much damage to your economy because how is a factory owner going to feel safe building a factory here if they don't know they're going to have a stable source of power? So my advice to the Philippines is not to get too reliant on natural gas. Even coal is more stable, although of course it's more polluting. I can also speak a little bit about offshore wind. That is what I do in Taiwan. Unlike Congressman 𝗥𝗲𝗽𝗶, I love the technology. I think the turbines are beautiful, but it is a very, very expensive technology. So the Philippines have to think really carefully about whether or not you are ready to make this very expensive investment. In Taiwan, the government paid a lot of money in the form of feed-in tariffs, 20-year feed-in tariffs. That's a 20-year burden of locking the people of Taiwan into more expensive electricity for 20 years to build those wind farms. And now we're having the tech companies take over. The tech company have money. They want to buy green electricity to satisfy their supply chain obligations. But I don't think the Philippines have the same demand for green energy from the manufacturer as Taiwan does.
I'll go back to Congressman Mark. Congressman Mark, how many jobs are we looking at? How much?
For every 1,000 megawatts, that's a medium size, or on the bigger size nuclear plant, we're talking about 1,000 permanent jobs.
1,000?
And these 1,000, and these are high-paying jobs. These multiples of what you would pay workers in a coal plant or in a gas plant. Several times, several 100% higher. And then when you refuel every 18 months, you triple that. There's a group of industries that come and support your nuclear plant during the refueling and maintenance period. So for like a month, all of a sudden you triple that workforce of all the support industries coming in to maintain your nuclear plant, right? So imagine if the Philippines had 16,000 megawatts of nuclear power, 1,000 megawatts plants. These workers would be going around the Philippines supporting the nuclear plant, and each of them would have 1,000 highly paid workers. Now, when you have 1,000 highly paid workers in a local community, all of a sudden, the schools get better, the services get better, the restaurants get better, the barber, the butcher, the baker, the candlestick maker, everybody benefits from the cash flow of the huge payroll of the nuclear power plant. So the effect is all around.
Yes, I understand.
And another thing, no,
Yes, sir.
my formula, my idea for social buy-in in the localities is that the localities need to ask for free electricity
Yes.
for them to host the nuclear power
Yeah.
plant. Like in the
Yeah.
case of Labrador, we have said that twice the 2021 consumption for every 1,000 megawatts for the entire 80-year life of the nuclear plant.
Mhm.
So if the locality ends up having the cheapest electricity in the Philippines, they believe that it would attract all kinds of businesses, all kinds of industries to set up there. And so it's not only the nuclear plant now providing employment, it's all the other industries that will become possible to locate there because that is the cheapest place for manufacturing in the Philippines.
I see. Mark Nelson, let me ask this. No, as in the case of any other industry, like the automobile industry, if you build a central location to put in all the car manufacturers, it eventually creates a community around it that supplies what the automobile manufacturers need, creating a bigger business, a business community. It creates so much bigger business by just creating one industry. What kind of industries around a nuclear power plant do you think will be built if we start building now?
So
Is this for Mark? Yeah, okay, go ahead.
this is something that is just now emerging, as in very few people in the world know what I'm about to tell you. The data center industry, so IT industry, needs giant data centers for the future software services that live in the cloud. The cloud is not powered by software. It runs on software powered by electricity. So what you're starting to see is IT, which has very high value added. It's getting added near power plants to have shortest possible cable and possibly some other services from the power plant. Here's another one. Hydrogen and chemicals manufacturing, especially when fossil fuels are getting more limited and maybe more expensive, they can be located very close to a nuclear plant to use not just the cheap electricity, but also the heat coming from the nuclear plant. Many nuclear plants in Eastern Europe today already put out their heat that they don't need for electricity. It's waste. They put the heat into the community for free heating. Now, you don't need free heating so much in the Philippines, but there are lots of industries that need water that's at elevated temperatures. That's something the nuclear plants will be designed to provide going into the future. One more thing, you can run air conditioning for big skyscrapers and for urban areas off of heat from power plants. It's complicated engineering, but it works. That's something that, say, in New York City and very, very rich and developed cities, people are putting in microgrids running off of fossil fuels designed to provide heating and cooling. You, in the future, will be able to do that from small reactors also.
Congressman Mark, your side, ano mga negosyo sa paligid ng nuclear power plant? Kasi as I said kanina, yung photo, ibang klaseng.
Yes, marami po, no? Marami pong energy intensive. Like for example, ice making, no? Ice making is a very energy intensive. So we lack cold storage for vegetables, for fish, for meat products. So our ore, we export ore. And then we buy back finished products. We should export the ore as already processed metals. We don't need to export iron ore if we had an iron making industry in the Philippines. Aluminum, we would have our own aluminum, which is energy intensive. Electric vehicles, if we decide to electrify, like you were complaining about the rising price of gasoline, by the first quarter of next year, if it were electric, it would be, how can you charge your electric vehicle as you sleep at night with solar panels? There's no sun at night. So if you had nuclear, it's off-peak hours. While you're sleeping, your car is charging, your truck is charging. You use it the next day, right? So these are the kinds of things that would really benefit from nuclear. I don't think that physically it should be concentrated in one place.
Yeah.
That's the one of the big benefits of nuclear, is that you don't need huge transmission because you can locate close to the load. No, example: 70% of the GDP of the Philippines happens between Pangasinan and Batangas. Metro Manila is at the middle. That's our biggest economic activity. So 4 centers around this area supplying that northern Luzon grid could answer for all our most of our electricity needs in that area. And you don't need to build very massive transmission because unlike wind and solar, another thing, solar capacity factor at 15% means you're only using the line 15% of its capacity. So you made an investment for a power line. How do you get the ROI from that? And then we blame NGCP, right? Same with wind. It's only 40%. So the rest of the time, it's Tenga. So who pays for the return of investment of that? So they have to charge more to be able to make it economically viable. So the electricity ends up becoming more expensive. So yung po mga, yes.
Yes. Mark Nelson, yeah, this is a question that's always in the mind of people. How long does a single power source for a nuclear plant last?
Wait, well, when you put fuel in a nuclear plant, that fuel lasts for 5 years, then it comes out. You put new fuel in every 1.5 to 2 years. Some nuclear plants go 2 years without stopping once. They then refuel. The nuclear plant itself lasts depending on design, between 40 years for some designs out there, like the type that used to be built in England. But the type that is at Bataan Nuclear Power Plant, these are going to be lasting 80 years or longer. We don't know how long, maybe over a century. The reactors being built of Bataan style today will be expected to be a century or more. So that's the fuel length. That's the power plant length.
Anyway, I'm running out of time. But before we go, I'd like to ask a few words from you guys. I'll start with Angelica. Angelica, can you give us a few last words regarding this development? I'm looking because
maybe Angelica can say something about how in the 60s and 70s nuclear really helped Taiwan progress.
Yes.
Well, you know, once upon a time, Taiwan developmentally was not that far ahead of the Philippines. Let's say in the 70s, we were making lawn furniture, tennis shoes, Barbie dolls, not that advanced. We were considered a third world country. And that was when we built 6 nuclear reactors in the late 70s and 80s. And that ended up providing 50% of Taiwan's total electricity supply. That was the stable foundation that allowed the economic miracle of Taiwan that I'm sure everybody knows about in the 90s. So I think for the Philippines, you can see the potentials there because almost like it's very rare Taiwan stopped having babies, China stopped having babies, Japan, South Korea long ago. In the Philippines, you guys have the workforce of the future. We know they're highly desirable because they go all over the world to work. But this amazing resource that should all the economists say it should make the Philippines rich, might be strangled in their potential if you don't have the stable electricity to enable them to grow the economy. So for the future of the Philippines, I believe stable power is an absolute must. And I hope that Taiwan and the Philippines can work together in the future, be good neighbors, and grow together. That's all I have to say. Thank you so much for having me on the show.
Thank you very much, Angelica. Mark Nelson. Oh, by the way, Mark, one final question for you. What kind of technological knowledge, know-how, and how wide will it be if we build up nuclear power plants?
Well, there's a challenge of designing and making your own nuclear plants, and then there's the challenge of running your nuclear plant and the nuclear industry around it. Those are two different challenges. Only a few countries have developed nuclear plants, but those range across many different countries. Argentina is a country people don't think of as being able to design and build its own nuclear plants, but it does. Canada can, India can, Russia can, China can, Sweden did in the past. America, of course, can. What this means is, depending on the evolution of Philippines as a country, you might be able to get into doing it yourself, but at the very minimum, we know for a fact you can get them built and you can run them extremely well. So what we find is that the nuclear, when it comes to a country, has so many other technological benefits that it raises the well-being of everybody. If I could say a final word on that, I would say this. Rich countries are the ones building the most solar panels, okay? That's because they're rich and they can afford to buy solar panels. It is not true that solar and nuclear have to be enemies. It is not true that natural and gas and nuclear have to be enemies. A Philippines with nuclear is rich enough to have much more of everything for everybody, meaning you will have a bigger grid for everybody to share a much larger pie. I just am worried sometimes about zero-sum thinking, meaning if we have nuclear, we can't have the other types. Absolutely not true. I urge you, anybody that says Philippines is not good enough, not smart enough, or not capable enough to have nuclear, they are not telling the truth about you and your country, and you should not trust them on any of those other subjects on energy if they say you're not good enough to have nuclear, because you are.
Thank you very much, Mark. Congressman Mark, we are on archipelago. In your mind, do you think mini nuclear power plants are so much better than stringing along all those power lines?
Nuclear plants come in all sizes. There are big ones, there are medium-sized ones, and there are small ones, and there are micro ones. So the president is currently very enamored with micro reactors. This would be perfect for SPUG areas like Mindoro, like El Nido, like Coron, various tourist spots around the country, which could have a power source that you didn't need to pay attention to for several years at a time. You don't have to deliver weekly a diesel supply source, no? So the cost of electricity will drop tremendously in these countries with this kind of, and there's no pollution, there's no smoke. So even the environment, the tourism environment in these countries will improve. It's silent, doesn't make noise. And then for the bigger parts of the grid, let's go with medium and large size reactors. Of course, there are SMRs, which are the medium-sized parts of our grid. So there's all kinds of combinations. And what's nice about nuclear, it's near the load, so we don't have to invest massively in new transmission capabilities. Unlike wind and solar, we don't have to invest in synchronous condensers, standby gas plants, etc., etc. This stuff makes the electricity, they say it's cheap, but when you consider all these workarounds to make it work reliably, it becomes very, very expensive. It's the cheapest way to make very expensive electricity. So that's the thing, that the takeaway I would like to give our people. So
thank you very much, everyone. Yes, Congressman.
As a parting message, I think that we need to tell our politicians that we've given everything else, every other technology, 37 years to succeed, and they have all failed miserably. Every single administration after 1986 has failed in its electricity policy. We've had crisis of reliability and crisis of price continuously since 1986. And I blame it all that we rejected nuclear out of hand. When we had a 100% complete and ready-to-run nuclear power plant, which if we did, we would not have 55% coal today, which costs us, what, $10 billion a year to run? Exporting our national wealth abroad, wealth that was given to us by our kamag-anaks working abroad. We are squandering it, burning it every year as fossil fuel, where we could be using it alternatively to buy the important material that we need to build our economy and our industry here. Wag na po tayo maging ganyan. The handwriting is on the wall. The fossil fuel exporting countries themselves, like the United Arab Emirates, have massive investments in nuclear power. Saudi Arabia is going to build 20 big nuclear power plants. Why are we so hesitant to use this? Get away from the superstition that this is dangerous. It is not. It is safe. It is the safest. It saves lives. Let's go here.
Okay. Thank you very much, Congressman. Thank you very much, Mark. I think Angelica logged out already, but thank you very much, Angelica. And maraming salamat po. Thank you very much for gracing our show, for guesting in our show. This is a
Thank you, Ira.
this has been a very,
Thanks,
very
Ira, for having
educational,
us.
been a very, very educational conversation. Thank you very much. It was a privilege. You have a good morning, guys.
Thank you. Thank you.
Good morning.
Thank you.
Magbabalik po ang Morning Report Pilipinas pagkatapos ng maiksing paalala. Ang oras natin, alas 8:49 ng umaga.
This is Francis Guzman. This is Good News Filipinas, where advocacies and action are given priority. Aired every Sunday from 12 noon to 1 p.m. on Radio Bandido TV, simulcast on DZRJ 8:10 a.m. Here, this is where truth and health matters.
Hi, this is Marlene Craig, and my program is RPM Revolutions per Minute, accelerating your Saturday noontime. It's every 12 noon to 1 p.m. It's on Radio Bandido TV, simulcast on DZRJ 8:10 a.m. and on Sky Cable 224, and also in your digital boxes and on free-to-air TV. Also on Facebook.com/DZRJ 8:10 a.m. and our official YouTube channel.
Ako si Attorney Darwin Cañete, and my program is Pugad Vloggers, aired every Monday to Friday from 7 to 8 p.m. dito sa Radio Bandido, simulcast on DZRJ 8:10 a.m. on Sky Cable, Channel 224, TV Plus boxes, and on free-to-air TV. Facebook.com/DZRJ 8:10 a.m. and our official YouTube channel. Nood po kayo!
Nagbabalik po tayo sa Morning Report Pilipinas. Medyo natuwa ako doon sa usapan natin this morning. Ang isa po sa pinakamagandang magiging development ng pagtatayo ng nuclear power plant or nuclear energy source sa bansa natin is yung development ng teknolohiya, yung development ng pag-iisip ng mga mamamayan sa mas advanced na direksyon. Kaakibat ho kasi ng nuclear power plants ay ang pag-nurture ng mga engineers. So, yung mga inhinyero, yan ho yung mga pinakamatinding mga inventor sa paligid natin, sa buong mundo, sa buong mundo. Si Elon Musk, isang engineer. Si Mark Zuckerberg, kahit although hindi nakatapos, took up engineering. Diba? Si Bill Gates, Bill Gates' roots are engineering. Karamihan yung mga yan ay engineer. At ang magpapatakbo ng nuclear power plants ay mga engineers. Mostly engineers. Siyempre, titindi yung pag-aaral ng inhinyero, pagiging inhinyero sa bansa. Dahil lahat sila gusto magtrabaho sa nuclear power plant. Dahil doon magkakaroon ng malaking sweldo at magandang benepisyo. Di ba? Isipin nyo yung panahon na merong magtatayo ng isang nuclear power plant sa isang maliit na bayan. Di ba? Dahil kailangan nila ng murang elektrisidad. So magtatayo sila ng power plant doon, mini nuclear power plant. Kailangan sila ng trabahador doon. Puro inhinyero kailangan doon. So yung lugar na yun, malamang magtayo ng sarili nila, yung paaralan na nandun, yung maliit na kolehiyo na nandun, Malamang mag-concentrate ng pagpapaaral ng mga inhenyero para makapagtrabaho dun sa maliit na power plant nila. With engineering comes IT, information technology. It comes applications. Dadating dyan yung mga computer, yung mga server, yung mga, at iba't ibang mga bagay na nakakabit sa information technology. Nakakabit yan dun sa advancement ng komunidad. Diba? So, marami yung bagay mag-i-improve dahil sa nuclear energy. And I guess we should be looking at this now. Lalo na't ngayon at napino na nila ang teknolohiya ng nuclear. 𝗥𝗲𝗽𝗶𝗶𝗶, good morning, good Monday, umaga, Boss Idol Ira, and to all viewers and local international. Sabi niya ni Peter, wow, change of pace today. Topic and guest, an eye-opening discussion indeed. Si 𝗥𝗲𝗽𝗶𝗶, dapat po talaga ang Bataan Nuclear Power Plant ay buksan na ni President BBM. Yes. At si Peter, yes, tama, agree 100%. Ang Bataan Nuclear Power Plant, kahit may kalumaan, can be upgraded at mapagana ulit ang mga nagkokontra, mga hindi makinabang kasi many other countries have and used nuclear power plants now without issue nga. Thank you, sabi ni Peter. Thank you to all the guests today for all your insights shared. Ms. Angelica Ong, Mr. Mark Nelson, and siyempre, Honorable Congressman Mark Hovang. Nakakatuwa yung mga ganun diskusyon. Nakakatuwa yung pagka pinag-uusapan ninyo is something controversial. Pero hindi na controversial ang nuclear power. Yes, sabi nila, hindi. Doon sa Europe, nagtatanggal sila ng power plant. Yes, nagbabalik na rin sila ulit ngayon. For a while, nag-decision silang i-shutter yung power plants nila. Nakita nila yung gastos. Yung gastos ng kuryente pagka tinanggal yung nuclear power plants. Diba? So, ano nangyari? Binubuksan ulit nila. Ang Germany nagpasa ng legislation na sinasabing buksan na ulit natin yung power plants natin. The other, Switzerland and the other European nation, bumabalik sila sa nuclear power. Kasi nga, meron kang turbine, meron kang solar, meron kang wind, meron kang yung tubig. 'Di ba? Pero hindi hindi na i-deliver yung klase ng power, kuryente na ibinibigay ng nuclear at a fraction of the cost. Napakaliit ho ng kostas ng pagpapatakbo ng nuclear power plant. Alan Visitasyon, magandang umaga. Clara Antic, good morning. Ricardo Kaisik, 𝗥𝗲𝗽𝗶𝗶, at 𝗥𝗲𝗽𝗶𝗶, magandang umaga po sa inyong lahat. Matras daw yung ilalagay sa Department of Agriculture, sabi nung i-read natin. Nervyos. Masakit na trabaho, sakit sa ulong trabaho yun. Department of Agriculture. Yan, agrikultura. Yan. Isa sa mga makikinabang yan sa nuclear power. Bakit? Kasi madali na dapat magpatayo ng mga industriya na papaligid dun sa agriculture. Halimbawa, sinabi na yan ni Congressman Mark, cold storage. Ang problema ho ng agrikultura natin, pagkatapos anihin yung mga palay, yung mga mais, yung mga sibuyas, yung mga yan, wala hong paglalagyan. Kasi kung ilalagay mo lang sa ordinaryong warehouse, sa ordinaryong barn, sa ordinaryong tambakan, nabubulok, nasisira. Diba? Pag may nuclear power ka, mura na magpatakbo ng cold storage. Mura na magpatakbo ng storage, ng warehouse na meron tinatawag na climate control. Mas mapapatagal mo ngayon yung buhay ng mga perishable goods mo. O pwede ka na ngayong magpatayo ng katayan ng baka at saka baboy nang hindi nagmamadaling ibaba. Hindi mo na ngayon kailangang ibiyahe yung buong baka at saka yung buong baboy, yung buong kambing doon sa slaughterhouses sa Maynila para fresh. Hindi na ganun. Kasi meron ka ng cold storage, meron ka ng weather control, temperature controlled storage facility dahil mura ang kuryente. Walang makapagpatayo ngayon noon kasi mahal ang kuryente. Yan, agrikultura. May improve natin kasi tataas ang kita ng magsasaka. Dahil hindi na sila nagmamadaling magbenta ng produkto nila sa murang halaga dahil meron na silang cold storage. Bukas ulit tayo ha. Tingnan natin kung sino makakausap natin bukas. At wag po kayong aalis. Mamaya makakasama ninyo si Johnny Gomez sa kanyang Johnny Gomez Live. In the meantime, bukas po ulit tayo alas 7:30 hanggang alas 9 ng umaga. Dito po sa Morning Report Pilipinas. Ako pa rin po si Panganiban. Keep cool, stay focused on sports lang. I love you all. Peace. Bye-bye muna ako. I'll see you tomorrow morning. Bye-bye.
The views and comments of the hosts and guests